missionaries and pastors. We got anyone else out there 40 years plus in the ministry? You can join us up here on stage. All right, good. We got a good mix up here. We need more. But we'll stick with this. This is a good panel here. I did get some questions. Before we start, I want to also just remind you of these bags up here. Right before lunch, we'll be doing our second drawing. So if you're a missionary here, meaning you have a prayer card, not a business card, all right? If you're a missionary, you can put that prayer card, one prayer card in each bag, because we'll be doing a drawing for the missionary kids, missionary wives, and then the husbands as well. So if you got a prayer card, or you can just make one out of a coaster or something real quick, draw your picture on there. But if you're not a missionary, sorry. I know, yeah, we're all missionaries, I get it. But for those missionaries, yeah, 3 cards, 1 in each bag. There you go. Because we'll be doing that drawing for a blessing right before lunchtime, okay? So, listen, I know there's never enough time, there's never enough sessions. I know everyone out there has something to say, and you could, and I'm not joking when I say that, I'm not being sarcastic, like every one of you could benefit or give us a blessing from the experiences you've had, topics you have. It's always a challenge. I try to stuff in 3 sessions per day, and even then it's not enough time. But those that were able to speak this week, some of them are up here, others, I know, my point being, we all have something to share. And that's what the fellowship time is for, right? That's what the lunch time is for, and the other time just to sit around and fellowship and share with each other about ministry. And we discuss a lot of things, but let's discuss important things and encourage each other and ask questions. So one of the things that I got accused of as a young missionary was asking too many questions. I remember a missionary getting a little frustrated with me and go, "I don't know, brother, just go out and do it." And I wasn't asking questions to, try to annoy them, but I really wanted to know, and I wasn't in this state of, well, I don't want to do anything and just asking questions because I didn't want to make a mistake. But we want to learn from others' mistakes as well, right? That's one of the reasons why we do this, and I hope you guys up here on the panel will be vulnerable enough to admit some of the things perhaps that you did wrong. Save some of us others from making the same mistakes. And that's the advantage of doing something like this. Probably the best advice I ever got was from veteran missionaries saying, don't do what we did in this thing. And Dave being one of them. Dave Jones and Bernard Smith, when I first got to the field, they were going through some rough things that had just happened in churches that they turned over, and they said, whatever you do, don't do this. And I listened to that more than, you should do this, you should do that. Everyone's got something you should do, but when someone says, don't ever do this mistake, that's being vulnerable, right? That's allowing your mistakes to be used for God's glory and His honor. And man, I can't write a book on what to do, but I'm sure I could write a few volumes on what not to do, right? In the ministry and in relationships. And so we learn from those things. These are things that we can help others to learn through as well. And so that's more for the panel. Some of these questions are, we don't mean to embarrass you, but we want you guys to share with us what you have experienced in a maybe a negative way. But remember that what man meant for evil, God can turn for good. And so we want to use that. All right? We'll start off with one question here. And I'm gonna head on down because I don't want to be in the center of attention here. So I want you guys to be able to talk freely. The first question I'd like to start out with, and by the way, just keep our answers brief. I wouldn't go on a 10-minute rabbit trail story or something like that, so that everyone gets a chance. And not everyone has to comment on every question, but we'll try to keep it rolling here, okay? First question, this one came in. First question I got was, when you're not okay, meaning okay, quote unquote okay, you're not doing well, or your family isn't doing well. What approach did you use to overcome depression and bitterness, et cetera, et cetera? Those hard times, what did you find helpful to do to overcome those, right? I know Brother Bingo, that's his specialty.
Am I on? Okay. So I'm going to say, don't do what I did. How's that? Came back off the field, and we'll talk about that next hour. You'll get to know a little bit about us. I was in real trouble. Kathy talked to me. I had suffered a traumatic brain injury. I was there and other things. My congregation noticed there was problems, but I just refused until finally I couldn't refuse anymore. I was becoming debilitated, even having a hard time picking my clothes out in the morning. And so finally I went to someone, a pastor friend of mine. We knew each other from high school. He pastored a huge megachurch in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, where I'm from. And I told him what was going on, and he looked at me and he said, Don, the only time I hear these stories are from our veterans coming off the front line in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he said, our church is going to pay for you to see a trauma therapist right away. And that was the beginning of 100 hours of learning how to manage a traumatic brain injury. But it was 4 years too long. You do damage without even noticing it. So a big part is, guys, you don't know you're in trouble, and even when you sense it, you're not going to admit it. So you got to find someone who's friend enough to say, you're in trouble, and then you got to act on it. So
Acting quickly is what I'm hearing you say. Don't delay it. Don't be in denial.
you either deal with it or it deals with you.
Good. Anyone else have a thought about that? How to overcome those hard times, depressions? What did you do? Maybe you went through something. Anybody got a comment?
What he said is, do something, but have somebody you can go to. I think for me that has been a real help. My pastor, who's not here now, but being able to go to somebody quickly.
I can't see you. There you are. At first, I would just get quiet, and every time I'd get quiet, my wife would say, Kate, why do you hate me? I said, you did nothing wrong. But I struggled with that until I found Psalm 37, and I would start going through Psalm 37, where it says, fret not, trust and do good, delight in the Lord. And I found ways for me to delight in the Lord, and one of those ways for me was singing praise songs and just delighting in the Lord. So when I found Psalm 37, then I put I put a card on my bed when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, because problems are always worst at the 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I would read through that, and Psalm 37 would take me through it.
Amen. Anybody else want to speak into that? Overcoming difficulties, discouragement? Anyone? Yes, sir.
I think my recommendation would be to take time to reflect. And we don't do that often, do we? We are like a hamster on the wheel and we just keep running. But built into your rhythms, and we do this with our teams, is make sure to take a dope day. And that's day of prayer and evaluation. And this is so critical that when you're going through a time of discouragement or depression, take the time to get alone with God and have that whole day blocked off just for prayer and reflection, and allow His Spirit to minister to you and to reveal to you maybe something that's going on in your life, something that needs a correction. And so we actually have dope forms that kind of help lead you into worship and the questions to ask and what you want to evaluate. And then it ends up with, what are you going to do? What steps are you going to take moving forward? And we found that to be very helpful to recover from times like this.
The good dope. That's interesting. Good way to remember it. What does it stand for again?
Day of prayer and evaluation.
Day of prayer and evaluation. Good. Just on that note, I think just to, not that I've been in it 40 years, but a day off. How many of you guys took a day off during the week? And what did you do on your day off? I'm just kind of feed into that question. And maybe is that a way of prevention, right? Instead of getting to a point where, man, you need time away, like a couple months, a break. How did you handle a day off in the ministry? Maybe you guys speak into that a little bit.
Yeah, missions is hard because you're involved in so many areas, especially in the beginning of a ministry. So when we were in Mexico, we were planning a church and starting a seminary and teaching classes, and so it's just really hard. But we would try. We'd try to take Mondays off, which is typically, we're all exhausted after Sundays, right? So we try our best just to schedule that with family time and orient our life in such a way that that was a priority. And it certainly is valuable certainly for us as a minister, but perhaps even more importantly for our family.
Anybody else?
I have to speak into this, again, to say what we don't do, because this was not built into our DNA. As we were in that generation of just grin and bear it and work harder. And somehow, if you don't take a day off, you're more spiritual because you're just working harder in the service of the Lord. And we suffered because of it. And the new generation has this whole thing about Sabbathing, and we are learning from them. I heard a very respected preacher say last week in a conference I was in, I can tell if someone is truly trusting God in the ministry if they take a Sabbath or not. Because if you think it's all on your shoulders and it's all up to what you're doing, and you just work harder and never take the time off to decompress and get alone with God, take time for recreation and for your family, then you're not trusting God with your ministry. So that's something we've had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, so like, think of it like this, you need to take a Sabbath before the Sabbath takes you. So we did a lot of different things day off, but in Africa and the northern Minnesota I'm from, there was nothing more relaxing to me than to take my .303 World War I British sniper rifle, go out in the bush and just kill something. So deer, kudu, warthog. I couldn't do that. I'd go fishing, but being out in the bush and snuffing the life out of something really helps. So I know I could say that in Texas. If I was in Maryland, we wouldn't talk like that. You know?
Shoot something instead of someone, right? No, that's good, that's good.
Beat
And
that fish to death when you got it in the boat?
No, I filleted it and deep fried it.
Yeah.
Just like I like my sushi, deep fried.
Amen. Well, that's good, that's good. I think we need to hear that. And another question here, kind of along the same level, is how you coped with it. And the question came in, what are some specific things you did for your family or your wife or children to deal with the additional stresses of culture and maybe foreign living? This is more on the missionary side of things, but you know, we have that as pastors as well, the stresses, and although it's not in a foreign country, although it's feeling more and more like we're living in a foreign country with all that's going on. What are some specific ways that you helped your wife and children deal with those stresses and culture issues, and how did you deal with that specifically?
You're a good man to answer this question because some of this I learned from you, but taking time to do fun things with your family. We would go to the beach, we would go on motorcycle rides, we would hike Kilimanjaro, we would plan fun things in our cultural context to make them just enjoy where we live. And that really went a long way to our kids loving our life, loving the culture. And so just being intentional about taking those family times and making ministry fun. If mom and dad are happy, then the kids will be happy. But if they see you miserable and you're just grinning and bearing it, you're going to have issues with your children.
Good, good. Anybody else want to talk into that? How you can help your wife and children in those difficult situations? Anything practical?
I'm the same with Dave. Kruger National Park, weekend at Weenan Game Reserve, elephants, giraffe, lion, leopards. Take them down to the mall in Durban where you can actually surf in the mall. They had a surf tank or whatever you call it. And I would remind them, I remember one Christmas, I went down to the post office down in South Africa. It's like 110 degrees at Christmas. So you're standing in line with 400 other people. It has a particular aroma about it that time of year in the post office. And I picked up this huge box. I mean, it was huge, and I brought it home, and the church had sent us Christmas gifts. And when we opened those, my boys, they were itty bitty then, maybe 7, 6, and 5, said, "What are those for?" And I said, That's because you're missionary kids, and you're very, very special. And these people love you, and they sent these gifts to you. We always remind them missionary life was an exciting life. They were blessed, and I think Dave's right. A lot of it's your attitude of your parents. And laugh. Learn how to laugh. Families that laugh together are usually in pretty good shape. They can, learn how to do that.
No, I think that's important, and having a set time. I know my kids would always remind me, hey, Dad, tomorrow's your day off. What are we doing? And they became to know that Monday after they were done with homeschool and all that, that there was an activity that was planned. And so it gave them something special. And then, yeah, just the adventures that are there. I mean, the countries that we live in are part of, man, people go a long way to go to that country. What a shame it would be to live in that country and never go to the national park or Kilimanjaro or, do those fun things, There's no Pee Wee Soccer League, but man, when my son was 10, I got him a dirt bike and we dirt biked all around East Africa. And it was, people dream of that, and it was a great time. And so you do what you can with what you got, right? And even as pastors, we need to do that, get away, get out of town. I find it hard to relax when I'm in the environment that I'm in the rest of the days. So I need to get out. I'll get up to the Guadalupe, or I'll get out to the hill country where, I'm probably not going to see a church member on a hike or doing some fishing or what have you. So yeah, I think that's so important and healthy, and we shouldn't feel guilty about it. Good.
Thought every country and culture has beauty and enjoyment that
Yes.
we can enjoy. And we're not just there to conquer the evil aspects of culture, we're also privileged by God to enjoy the beauty of that culture and introduce that to our children. And that helps them to love the country in which we are serving and to love the people where we are serving also.
Amen. Amen. All right, let's move on to the next question. You guys have been doing this for a while. How do you avoid getting stuck in ministry and keeping a new vision? How do you avoid just putting it on cruise control and just letting it happen? What's some of the things you've done to help keep it from getting stuck?
One thing that's helped me is to go to various seminars or conferences, even some that may be outside our normal realm, and just get an idea of what others are doing. And then whether or not everybody does this, reading a good book on ministry, even those, I'm just finishing one, I don't agree with everything the guy's saying, but it's on prayer, but it is really, again, revitalizing. And I think that keeps us focused. Right now, I seem to be eat up with this idea of prayer. Every verse I read in the Bible says this is a verse on prayer, and I know it's not, but reading a good book regularly. I don't know how many of us do. I am not a reader. I have every educational thing behind me. I just grew up in an era where they didn't classify. I'm just, if I was in that, I'd have AD, ADN, DD, and BBBB, and so I don't read. I force myself. I do. But it has helped. And then going to things that will challenge me and keep me going. The mission field has been a tremendous revitalization for me. God's allowed me to do that many times, and I'm grateful for it.
Good. Anybody else? How do you not get stuck? How do you get to that new vision? And what are some things you've done? Any advice you have on that?
Echo what Pastor Jones said. I think always seeking to improve yourself and reading and taking advantage of the educational opportunities that are available to us. I think other fields do that. They have continuing education. I think we as missionaries and pastors ought to be involved in that also. And that constantly pushes us forward, considering new ideas and helping us to evaluate the state of our current ministry and our life.
Yeah, a lot's so available online now. You don't even have to go to a seminar or get on a plane. You can listen to podcasts and even tune in to seminars that are online. I know I wasn't able to go to a recent ministry conference because this was coming and it was too close, but I watched a few sessions online from my office and got some things and was excited about it. but I wasn't able to go to the conference. And so, yeah, just continuing that at School of Missions, book it for next year. Make sure you're here, right? A little plug in there, but you get ideas from things like this. And so just observing other ministries. And a lot of times when we go to those conferences, though, I know myself, it's usually at a pretty big church and they've got all the bells and whistles. And sometimes I've walked away a little discouraged, like, there's no way we're gonna be able to pull off what they're teaching, because they're teaching it, because they've got the facility and they've got the personnel and they've got the funds to pull these really neat workshop things that they're pulling off. And you go, well, I'll never be able to do that. So I think we need to find a balance in that, not setting the expectation so high. I know I felt that every time I went to the city ministries of these missionaries that were in the cities. I was like, man, there's no way our church is ever going to get to that level, because it was a different environment. It was like apples and oranges. So I think you need to avoid comparison in those type of things when you do read a book or go to a seminar, making sure, you take the buffet approach, right, that we've been talking about. Good. Well, this kind of goes along, again, a lot of these are based on kind of those first two questions on the personal life, but how do you keep the balance, okay, of family and ministry? What are some things that you would suggest of keeping that balance of family and ministry?
Your wife. Yeah. My wife would just tell me, Bruce, I need you. You're too preoccupied. You're distracted. I need you to spend time with us. I need you to spend time with our children as well. And it was a good rebuke for me and as a reminder that I have multiple responsibilities, that my family should take priority.
Listen to your wife. I'm bad about this. Not listening to her. I do try to, but I'm bad about not taking a day off. That's just, I guess, the way I was raised, and I'd rather be here doing this. Just me, okay? But I like taking days off. But there was a time when I wasn't taking a day off regularly, and she told me one day. She said, "If you're going to work today, you're going naked, because I'm going to hide all your clothes." You can ask her. She told me that. In other words, she said, "You need to take a day off." So I did. I did take a day off. Didn't come to work.
One way is to be very public about it, to let the church or your ministry, whatever it is, say, this is my priorities. It's God, family, and then you. Yes, I'm going to take time to go see my son's baseball game. You may call the office and I'm not there. Where is he? At your son's baseball game. That's my priority. So I was very public about it to the whole church so that they knew I was going to be a husband and a father as best I could, and I wasn't going to let the church ministry take away those things.
Good.
Can I?
Go ahead, brother.
And I was just going to say, we have to learn to find enjoyment in our family, right? As men, we are very goal-oriented. And we have a staff member on our team. He tells me, Bruce, I am happiest when I'm working. He said, I'll work till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm telling him, that's wrong, brother. Your wife is where you should find certainly our relationship with the Lord, but you find your satisfaction in your spouse and in your children. And those are gifts of the Lord that God has given to you. And you need to find enjoyment in them, and not just, if you only find enjoyment in your work, there's something wrong in your relationship with the Lord, and there's something wrong in relationship with your family.
To that, maybe one of the problems that sometimes we have is that's on the negative side, is there are some people who take advantage of the ministry and do very little. And we are afraid to be thrown into that category, and we overdo it. And again, we can love the work, but probably my biggest problem, I guess, is not realizing I don't have to be here every day.
This word balance, we tend to think that it has to be 50-50, right? And obviously there's times like this week where I'm not eating dinner at home every night. I'm with you guys, right? And even leading up to this week has been busy, right? And the best example I heard of balance is the tightrope walker, right? He has that long pole, And very seldom is it straight across. It's usually tipped to one side or the other, right? There's times where, man, it's heavy ministry like this week. I mean, we're just going at it for 4 days straight, every night, morning till evening. And so the balance is really on the ministry side this week. So right after a busy time like that tightrope walker, he's constantly adjusting. Where does the balance need to go? And so next week, it's probably a good idea to take an extra day off because, we're not in that rhythm, and that rhythm got broke off, and our families and wives probably feel a little neglected. And so I always try to do that either before or after a big event like this, shift the balance over. And so there'll be times where, man, you might need 2 weeks off, or you might need that vacation coming up in relation to when a heavy ministry week happened, so it's that constant adjusting. It's never 50-50, it's never like, oh, I'm just going to share my time equally. And it's usually, hey, we're coming up on missions conference, guys, Dad's going to be real busy the week before and the week of, but the week after missions conference, we got something special planned. I'm going to take an extra day off, and we're going to do that. So it's that shifting. I think that word balance sometimes confuses us because we feel guilty, but we shouldn't. And it has to be adjusted. It's never 50-50 there. So I can just imagine that guy on the tightrope, and he's adjusting his pole on where it needs so he doesn't fall off. And it really is a tightrope walk sometimes to adjust. All right, let's get real practical here. We're going to get into the missionary-pastor relationship, okay? And I have experience a little bit on the pastor side now, and so, but more of my ministry has been on the missionary side. But I'm going to start with the question to the missionaries. Fill in the blank. The number one thing I expect from a pastor is blank. Yes.
Since I've been both,
Yeah.
now as pastor of a pretty large church, I would answer nothing. And what I mean by that is, when I became a pastor, I had no idea the demands that were put on pastors in the American church. I barely had enough margin of time to take care of myself and my family and my own spiritual disciplines. And our church, we gave a lot of money to missions, had a lot of missionaries. And as a missionary, it bothered me, but I made a decision. I just can't answer every email that's sent to me. I just can't down my tools every time a missionary would say, hey, I need to talk to you. So I prioritized the missionaries out of our home church. Now, when I was a missionary, all I asked is that our home churches come alongside us and encourage and support us. And when we needed them, they'd be there for us. And when we really needed them, when I was in an intensive care ward in South Africa due to a hand injury, and 3-4 weeks later, out stuttering, couldn't hardly talk, and we had to have some fault work, I called my pastor, and he said, you know what, ministry is not for sissies. Just pull up your pants and get going. I don't expect any more from them than me, but I realize that the pastor has their trials and their constraints. But if we need you, I guess my expectation is, could you just be there for us a little bit, And whatever that might look like, that's going to look different for everybody.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many missionaries tell me when a tragedy happened, or that some missionaries lost a child and didn't even get a call from their pastor. So,
Yeah.
but that's the exception, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of pastors are,
So be there.
Good, yeah.
Be available.
Yeah.
If needed.
and that's hard because pastors, you have a lot of time.
Sure.
I didn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, especially that home church pastor.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart to hear missionaries, and I've heard missionaries say this, that they hadn't heard from their home church pastor in over a year. Or at Christmas, hey, Merry Christmas. I know we're busy, guys, as pastors, and I get it. I'm now on one. But communication.
Yeah.
We expect it of our missionaries, right? We expect to get a quarterly prayer letter, or at least every other month or whatever, and if we don't, man, they're on the chopping block, right? So how often do they hear from us? And again, it goes back to that we're co-laborers, right? I know we're sending them their $50 a month, so we demand communication on that, but it would be nice if they would hear from us every once in a while.
And if I can add,
Yeah.
so when we went into this ministry and were reinserted or reinstated by the the BBFI sort of like reinserted into the metrics. It didn't hurt too much. I did an internship at Lewis's church in Ventura, pastoring, and Lewis and his dear wife made lots of time for Kathy and I, for us to talk through what this ministry is going to be like, so forth and so on. And then after we were on the road, even after Lewis, they changed ministries, he's been a real encouragement to me. I can call him anytime generally and say, hey, here's what's going on, what do you think? That's precious and invaluable. You can't, there's no measurement you can put on that as far as how valuable.
And again, I'm not trying to just take over here, but one thing I've done, because I've been on the other side as a missionary, and I think I shared this in a private conversation. I know I shared it last year in the School of Missions, but I write a pastor's prayer letter every quarter to our missionaries. I call Pastor Steve's prayer letter. Number one, I miss writing prayer letters as a missionary, but I'll put in pictures. I'll put in pictures from this week, what we did, the missions conference, our fall festival, the land clearing that's going on. It's like a prayer letter from Leon Valley Baptist Church pastor. Now, I'm not asking them for support, although I'd take it if they want to send something. But I'm asking for their prayers, right? And I've had missionaries communicate with me and said, you communicate with me more than my home church pastor. And you know how long it takes me? 20 minutes. Because it's a form letter. It's the same thing as what the missionaries are doing to us. They just open up a MailChimp account, put all of our missionaries in there, and write a letter. It's not, it's not because I have to. I just want them to hear from me. And I think it's a partnership. We need the missionary. Pastors need missionaries' prayers just as much as missionaries need pastors' prayers. We're on the same team. But a lot of times, pastors don't write prayer letters. Why not? I mean, I think we should have prayer cards too, pastors. I'm gonna make myself a prayer card and pass it out to all our people. They can pray for me at the refrigerator too, So it's not just missionaries who need prayer. I think we should have prayer cards and prayer letters anyway. I'm on my soapbox now, so I'll keep going. But I'm gonna flip the question around. What do pastors expect from a missionary? Because now we've been kind of hard on pastors, but come on, pastors, be open and honest with us as missionaries. What do you expect as a pastor? What's the number one thing you expect from a missionary?
For me, of course, it goes back to communication. We want to hear from them, and I've had to drop missionaries simply because of the lack of communication. But one thing that is a real dynamic in all of this is every missionary is different. There are some missionaries who want to be left alone.
Right.
They have a sending pastor and they want nothing to do with them. Leave me alone. I'm working on the field. I'll let you know if I need something. Other missionaries are wanting more from the pastor. So part of it is just kind of figuring out who wants what, because this person that doesn't want that communication, doesn't want me calling him, doesn't want me doing that. I want to work with them on that, but I still want to see that communication. And just for some of you that don't know, I've been working with missionaries for a long time, and I've been to 49 countries so far. I get my 50th country here in November coming up, going to see missionaries and working with missionaries. And missionaries do get upset with pastors because they expect something more from the pastor. And when I work with missionaries who are upset with their pastor, I have them write a list of what would the ideal pastor look like. And then I say, you're never going to get that from one guy. It's not going to happen. First of all, just like Dave was saying, your needs got to be met by the Lord, not your wife. And same thing on the field. You need to learn for your needs to be met with the Lord. But then recognize that your sending pastor is not going to be able to fulfill every single thing you think a sending pastor should fulfill. So sometimes, and Don deals with this constantly, of unrealistic expectations. And when you have an expectation that's not met, you can kind of go downhill. But for us, what I did was we had a team, a missions team, of course, that did a lot of work. And every month we sent every missionary our bulletins and our CDs, or we put it online. I don't know how, sent the links to everything. So they got all the bulletins from every week, and they got every sermon that they could log into and get those kind of things. And we were just trying to help them in that way.
Yeah. I remember my home church would send me the bulletins, Camp Baptist Temple. In our early days, they would send the cassettes in the mail, and I would listen to them in my car as I was driving. It made me feel connected to the home church. Right. Well, of course, now online, I would do that on my day off as a missionary. I'd listen to my home church's service. So I was connected. I knew what was going on there, and with technology, that makes it so easy. So it's both sides. It takes the pastor to stay well connected to the missionary, and the missionary well connected to the pastor. Any other thought on, from the pastors, what do you expect from the missionary?
If I can just add one thing in this very specific part. So when I'd have missionaries come to the church that were raised in support, right? Now, I know the game, right? I would be very clear in communicating with them. Lewis knows exactly where we're going with this. We want your PowerPoint now. We don't want to wait till you walk through the door. We want your display table set up. We want to know how many are coming with, what are your needs? Tell us, okay, and here's what we're going to do. We've got 2 services, all right? The first service starts at 8:15. We're rural people. I expect you to be here by 7:30. And we're going to get that thing set up. And then I'm going to give you 10 minutes in the service. You do your video in 10 minutes. I expect you to stay within that time frame. My thought is if you don't have the integrity to honor the time I've gifted you with, what kind of integrity you're going to have in the field. And so we've had missionaries egregiously, if they go 20 seconds or but take 25 minutes, and that's a recommendation to our missions committee, we're not supporting them. And then they call me back, why didn't you support me? Well, or they show up at 8:10, and they walk in, I said, look, you just need to sit for this next service. And they get upset with you, they get angry with you. We're starting in 5 minutes, sit down, don't have time for that. Maybe I'll let you do something in the second service. And this is pretty harsh, probably, Lewis, but I don't really care what the excuse is. It's not a matter that I'm cutting you off. It's just a matter of we can't make this work right now. So, and if the missionary's got a valid reason, that's fine. We'll work them to the second service. But when they get a little bit stroppy with me, to use a South African term, you'll be sitting the rest of the service, That's one thing that I watch young missionaries do is they blow the time way over, and then the next missionary waiting for it doesn't have any time left. Maybe that's just me, Pastor, but that really gets me. And having been a missionary.
Good. Yeah, you see both sides. Good. Any other from the pastors? What do you expect?
Well, I would
from the
agree with
missionary?
what he says. Now the communication, as a pastor, we wanted the people, the missionaries to communicate with us regularly and give us an idea of what's going on. And we've always had a good lady here that every once in a while would call me and say, Brother John, so-and-so hasn't sent us a letter in 6 months or a year. And I didn't keep up, but she did. And we'd find out why. Sometimes it was a problem with the emails or the various things, and they'd get it corrected. But I do agree, if you have a missionary coming in as a pastor, and you say, hey, here's what I expect of you. You got 30 seconds to tell us everything there is about your field. I don't do that, but I mean, they need to honor that, whatever, if it's 10 minutes or, whatever. I've had missionaries come. I had one that took way over the time on a Sunday morning. And, honor what the pastor expects of you, no matter what it may be. And, I used to it when we would meet for the missions before our services on Saturday night. I'd tell them, I said, your job is not here to correct what I'm doing wrong. You may not like the fact that they got some ladies here who got slacks on. Fine, that's my business. You may not like some of the haircuts. This is a few years ago when some missionaries want to come in and correct things like that. I said, that's my job. You're here to present missions, evangelism, and what God's called you to do. Leave it at that.
Good, yeah, respecting that local church authority and realizing you're a guest, and that's all good stuff. All right, I'm gonna stay on the same category, but I'm just gonna ask you to be super transparent on this one, okay? I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, but pastors, what's one thing that missionaries do that just absolutely annoys you? We talked about the time issue, but what's one thing you just don't do that?
We'll start with don't park in visitor parking. I had a missionary one time, had a car and a trailer, and took 8 visitor parking spaces to park his vehicle. So recognize that visitor parking are for the people you're trying to reach, not the missionary that showed up.
Okay, someone needs to go move their car right now.
What really bothers me is when I have a missionary come in, and I'm very clear to them, look, they don't need a good sermon, that's why they pay me. I want you to rip your heart out for missions. I want you to put it in the pews. I want you to be transparent and honest. I want you to tell us why you love your people, how you love your people, what it is that puts you where you're at, what has moved you. And then they get up and they do an Our Daily Bread devotion, or I don't know what and when you're done, you're going, well, we don't know anything more about them. My people don't know anything more about them than when they got up. And I go, what were they talking? Or they preach a sermon. Well, that drives, I must admit to you, I've committed murder in my heart a few times over that one, but hey, okay, thanks, we go out to eat, and the missionary, how'd I do? I'm a truth speaker. You dropped the ball, you know?
Good. Any other, because we're going to reverse this, by the way. We'll ask the missionaries what pastors.
I should be talking about what I hated that Lewis did.
Yeah, right.
And then Lewis could be saying what he hated about.
Go for it. I mean, just let it fly, man. That's what we're here for. We want to see it. Break it out on the stage. It'd be like Jerry Springer up here. Throwing chairs and everything.
When I surveyed pastors to put my workshop together, and I surveyed a lot of pastors, and they said, number one, missionaries stay on your time, which we talked about. Number two, do what you are told.
Yeah.
Just do what you're told. I was in a mission conference one time where the pastor on the first night just said, okay, all the missionaries come up here, we're just going to introduce you. And the missionary wife just sat there and says, I need you to come up. She says, I'm not coming up. She says, all I'm going to do is introduce you. You don't have to say anything. I'm not coming up. It was the most embarrassing thing to go through, that she just decided she wasn't going to come up on the platform. So it was be on time, do what you're told to do, and have a challenging message. If you're allowed to preach, don't just talk about give me all your money.
Yeah.
Uh,
Have something to say to the people in that message.
More
And I was going to
thoughts?
say what Don reiterated, that if they're asked to preach, fine. But in the last several years, especially for us on Sunday nights, I asked a missionary to come in. I said, I'm not really interested in your message. I want you to take the time, especially if it's new. And if it's one of our veterans that they knew, then let them preach. But I want them to tell who they were, how did they get saved, why are they going to the field, give us a history about them, so when they leave, people know Steve Burkholder, and not just because they don't. Be honest, they don't remember my messages from week to week. They're not going to remember much of the message. You got to be really Spurgeon if you're going to be remembered. But one other thing I might say is, and I know that this has got to be a challenge. I've not had this issue with being a missionary. But when you come in, make sure your children don't run rampant. I've had them on the platform tearing up things, and sometimes because they're so wound up from being in a van for 10 hours. Try to get there early enough to take them to the park, something to get that energy out to where they can. That's probably, and I've heard that from the people more too as well, is, man alive, what are those kids doing? And just kind of watch that. I mean, I know they're kids, and I think as pastors, someone said that the other night, give them understanding. All kids are kids, but that can be an issue.
All right, we're going to flip it over now, okay? Missionaries, you get to vent a little bit. Missionaries, or maybe those that have been both, what are some things that pastors do that just drive you bonkers?
Number one thing, I show up to the church, I've sent my letter, I've made my call, whatever, and I walk in and it's 30 minutes before service. I don't know what I'm supposed to do yet. It's 10 minutes before service. I don't know what I'm supposed to. I've had it where the music is playing and I didn't even know I was preaching until the preacher got up and said, okay, Don May will come up. Now that's an extreme case, but a lot of times I walk in, just please, Pastor, tell me what I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, where I'm supposed to do it, and how I'm supposed to do it. That probably causes me more anxiety than anything else. And then you have to pester the pastor and track him down. And that's not desirable either. So we go back to just be very clear on the communication. It's the same back and forth.
Oh, one thing with these I understand you get lots of telephone calls. Well, you try to call a church, try to call a pastor, and you get an answering machine, and they don't call back. You send an email, they don't answer. You're trying to set up a meeting. It's frustrating. You can't set up this meeting to know if that one's going to work. Is this date going to work? And sometimes there's some pastors are very slow to answer, and that is frustrating.
Good.
I know we've already mentioned unrealistic expectations that missionaries have of pastors, but I think there are some realistic expectations that missionaries should have. And one is that they should be interested in the ministry and the missionary. It is not uncommon for me to visit one of my supporting churches and the pastor has not read my prayer letter. So you're sharing a burden of your heart and you ask the pastor, or you're in a communication and the pastor doesn't even know what you're talking about. So there's this key that he's not read the prayer letter that you have given to him. And the second thing that bothers me is when pastors are not interested in me or my family or my ministry. So I can't tell you how many times a pastor has taken me out to eat after the service and not asked me one question about my family or my ministry. The entire conversation is about their church, and I'm vested in their church. And because I like ministering to pastors, and they share their burdens, and I like talking to them and pointing them to Christ. But it is extremely discouraging when you're with a pastor, you're only with him once every 4 years, and you sit down at a meal, and he's not interested enough in you as a missionary or in your field to ask you questions about your ministry. That's painful. And that bothers us as missionaries.
Good. Anyone else want to comment to that?
Yeah, I think I would just encourage pastors to be careful about prejudging a missionary's methodology and philosophy of ministry who is serving in a context that you've never experienced. And this is happening right now, especially in the North Africa, Middle East context, that there is a movement that is judging missionaries who conduct their ministry like we are right now. And they are indiscriminately dropping missionaries in their support because they think that that is not a biblical approach to church. And so if you've never lived in that context and you don't know the limitations that are placed upon that missionary in that context, then before you drop his support or before you prejudge what he's doing, have a sit-down talk and let him explain the biblical reasons and the practical reasons why in that culture what he's doing is the right approach.
Good, good. Well, staying on the same category of communication, I got a question here by text for the pastors. How do you prefer missionaries contact you? What is the best way to get that ball rolling? Maybe they're trying to book a meeting. What's the best way for them to contact you?
If they want to book a meeting, they need to call and try to talk to me on the phone. Letters are fine, but sometimes if you, for whatever reason, don't see it on your long list, that can be a problem. I'd rather a phone call. I would have rather a phone call. I mean, today you can get a hold of them. They have cell phones and stuff like that. I mean, unless a pastor is just not going to pay attention to the phone incoming calls. But
Send me a
would prefer
text
phone call.
message. I'll take a text message any day.
Text, okay. Anybody else have a preferred way of communication?
Well, no, but every pastor is different. Every pastor has a different way. There's no way a pastor can say, this is how pastors operate.
Right.
There's just no way whatsoever. And I liked getting an email saying, I'm going to be calling you, this is my field, and I'm going to be calling you, that kind of thing. Our problem was, I scheduled my missionaries 2 years in advance. And that's hard on missionaries to do that, but there were so many missionaries out there that we just scheduled them 2 years in advance. And so I let them know that, and so they were trying to give them a list for 2 years from now, so an email helped for me.
Good, good. So basically, different for each.
But talking about phone calls, I turned down an average of 5 missionaries a week. And I hate it every single time I had to turn a missionary down, every single time. So missionaries need to know that too, that there are pastors who are jerks, no question about it. But overall, every single time I said no to a missionary at her.
I think the text messaging is generational as well. So my millennial pastors and don't have any Z's yet. And some of the Xers, the new churches I've contacted, I've done it through text messaging. The younger the pastor, a lot of times the more they would prefer that than a phone call. But that's tricky too, but missionaries, we know how to navigate all that stuff. We learn how to do that.
I know just me personally, this, on the pastor side of thing, if someone calls me, just a random cold call, I don't know them, I'm probably gonna say, hey, why don't you send me an email with all your information? So it's good to maybe start with that and then follow it up with a phone call. I know missionaries have different methods on doing that. But I like to see something, I like to see their picture, I like to see their presentation. Sometimes they'll even send their video ahead of time. And you can tell a lot. I pretty much know if I want to have them in or not based on their first contact with me. And if it's sharp, if it's to the point. But I think also maybe in this line of communication, sometimes when missionaries book a meeting, there might be the expectation there of monthly support. And every church does that differently. I've been in churches where they take you on right there, right after your presentation. Well, I think we should take this guy on. What do you guys think? Amen, amen. And we take him on, right? And then sometimes it never happens. And then other times that you got to wait till the, full moon on the 4th year of,
Leap year.
yeah. And so it's like, oh, we got to wait till a business meeting 3 years from now. They're going to forget me. So I think, and every church is different, right? So as pastor, I try to let the missionaries know, if not before, when they're there, saying, hey, listen, this is how we decide new missionaries. We decide every 6 months. And there's no way I can take the 9 missionaries that have been in the last 6 months on. So we're going to take on 3. It's not a competition per se, but I can't take on everyone I have come in. But some pastors won't have you come unless they can take you on. So I think just again, that clear expectation, hey, listen, brother, I'm going to have you come in on a Sunday night. I'll get you down the road to the next place. I'm going to give you a love offering. But honestly, we're not in a position to take you on at this point. Sometimes missionaries just need the gas money to get to the next place. And other times, missionaries won't come unless there's a promise of support. And so I think, again, just a clear expectations, communications from the pastor, from the missionary, and let it fall where it is, so.
Well, I agree with Steve, because that's what we've always done, let them know, that just because you're here doesn't mean you get support that first month. But we have had missionaries who have come, and if they don't get support, we never hear from them again. But those who continue to send us a prayer letter, even though they're not getting support, are going to be more considered, or we'll consider them more. And we have taken on some, maybe a year. I'm thinking of one, I'm trying to remember who it was. It's 2 years down the road. But we were in a place where we had so many backlog that we did, and we did finally take them on, and they were just kind of surprised that we took them on. And so, send the prayer letters. I mean, today, especially if you do an email, that doesn't cost you anything.
One thing if I can add too, for missionaries, I made a mistake. How many of y'all use MailChimp or something like that? Don't ever, 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 regardless how low the percentage is of opens, of opens, don't delete them. Keep them on. I made the mistake to do that. I've talked to other missionaries who are really very proficient at MailChimp and communicating. You never, ever, ever delete anybody off your mail list, even if they haven't opened one time. Keep it going. I had a church call me, email me. It was January. And they said, hey, we figured since we took you on for support this month, maybe you'd come in and tell us what you're doing. So I emailed back and I said, well, I don't know. Let me think about that. And we laughed about it. And so sure enough, we had been there 5 or 6 years before. It took us on for $125 a month. They were only half an hour away from us. And we just went on a Sunday night and said, here's what we're doing. But that would have been one before. In the early days, I would have deleted because they weren't opening my emails my MailChimps very much. So don't ever delete anyone off your MailChimp. Keep them on there. You never know.
Yeah, keep them. And I agree with that because we've taken on a few where missionaries come off the field
Right.
You know, and maybe they were going to that field, or, you know, the church wanted to keep sending money to that particular country to reach that country. And so even as a missionary, I had a few of those. So yeah, keep sending the prayer letter, even if they're not supporting you, because it's a prayer letter. And it doesn't mean that they're not praying for you, right? It's not a support letter. And I get on another soapbox, it's not a newsletter. Sometimes I'll read prayer letters, missionaries, and believe me, I made a personal goal when I was pastor, because I was frustrated with pastors that didn't read my prayer letter. I'm going to read every prayer letter, 91 missionaries. That takes a lot of time, but I'm committed to it, and I read every single prayer letter that comes through, and sometimes I'll respond. And in addition to that, writing the Pastor Steve's prayer letter once a quarter, which takes me, again, 25 minutes to put together, send it out. But communicating with our missionaries. Listen, this is what we started doing on Sunday nights in our missions moment, and probably one of the top 5 things I've done as the new pastor, I think, not to say anything bad against the old pastor, but we have started communicating with our missionaries, not me as the pastor. We read the missionary prayer letters on Sunday night. In our service, we have a missions moment. I just review them. We pray for the missionaries, but I had the office administrator put the missionaries' email next to their name. And I said, right now, as we're sitting here, take out your phones and email the missionary right now as we're praying. And just a sentence, one sentence. Hey, we got your prayer letter today in our service. We read it Sunday night and we prayed for you. And then go even the extra mile and say, we're praying for this upcoming conference you're having, or we're praying for your daughter who's sick. Mention something in the prayer letter so they think it's not just a copy-paste type of thing. Right. And we've had more comments from missionaries that get those and say, we've already had 2 this week say, we hear more from Leon Valley Baptist Church than we hear from any other church. And you know how long that takes? We spend more time at stoplights on our way home than we do communicating with missionaries. Because it takes less than 30 seconds to write that 2-sentence email. And we have it right here. And so I tell people, hey, listen, you're going to spend more time at a stoplight on the way home than you will right now to make a missionary's week. It doesn't take much, does it, guys? No. As missionaries, you get that on Monday morning, they go to their computer screen and there's 25 emails from Leon Valley Baptist Church members. Man, and then I always tell the missionaries, you don't have to respond to each one, right?
I do.
You know?
I respond to each one that you send.
And if you do, copy paste. Hey, thanks for your prayers. We really appreciate it. Copy paste, right? Because I don't want to make that missionary's day off responding to 25 emails from our congregation. So I tell our congregation, don't expect a personal response from them. But if you do get one, great. And I've even had some little old ladies, I wrote that missionary, but he never got back to me. And I said, don't worry, ma'am, he's got a lot of old ladies out there praying for him, okay? But he loves you and he appreciates it, believe me. So anyway, little things like this, you know what, I guess we just wrap it up by saying it doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit of effort, the communication, being open, being honest, being transparent. And that's what I wanted this session to be, just something to get the conversation started. I've got 12 more questions here we don't have time for, but listen, this is what it's all about. It's the School of Missions, speaking to missionaries and pastors openly and honestly. Every church is going to be different. Every pastor is going to have their own expectations. Every missionary is going to be different. You're going to have some good preachers. You're going to have guys that's just not their thing. And maybe they're more of a help ministry. And, we're just going to have to be flexible, open in our communication, and be willing to accept one another, love one another, work together. Remember, we're on the same team.
Right.
And it's not a competition. And I think one thing, maybe I'll just end with this. It's hard everywhere. Yeah. It was hard in Tanzania, East Africa, out in the bush. And it's hard in San Antonio, Texas. It's a different hard, though. Yeah. But it's hard everywhere. There's no easy place for ministry, or people will be jumping through. That's right. They'd be waiting in line to do it, okay? Right. So, missionary, when you're with the pastor, realize he's got a hard ministry, too. And pastor, when you're with the missionary, realize they've got a hard ministry, too. And it seems like sometimes we're trying to outdo each other on how hard things are. And the missionary will tell the story, and then I'll always have the pastor go, well, in America, it's like that, too.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in America, we're going through that too, brother. It's nothing new to that. It's nothing new to your country. I go through that too. It's not a competition, right? It's not a competition. We got it. We realize. So we need to just encourage one another, right? Maybe we need to be that medic to one another. Maybe we need to be that drill sergeant to one another. But we're fellow soldiers. We're co-laborers. We're brethren in Christ. So thank you, guys. Let's give them a hand for just being up there. I know that's hard.